Deanna Cremin was a 17-year-old girl living in the city of Somerville, Massachusetts. She was known by her friends and family as thoughtful, kind, and full of life. A junior at Somerville High School, she was deeply involved in her education and well-liked by peers. Her teachers admired her respectful demeanor and responsible attitude. Her friends found her to be the kind of person who listened, supported others, and remained loyal. At home, she was the middle child, with a strong bond to her parents and her two siblings. Deanna grew up in a close-knit neighborhood. Somerville, in the 1990s, was a city in transition, still retaining its working-class roots, but slowly modernizing. It was a place where neighbors knew each other, children played in front yards, and people often left their doors unlocked. There was a sense of safety, of community, and for Deanna, that meant walking to school. Visiting friends and spending time with her boyfriend were all parts of a typical day. Tuesday, March 28, 1995, began like any other day. Deanna attended school as usual. According to classmates and teachers, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She appeared in good spirits, participated in class, and was making plans for the future. After school, she returned home, and later that evening, she went to visit her boyfriend. He lived within walking distance, and visiting him had become routine. They were known to be a committed couple, and it wasn't unusual for Deanna to stop by and walk home afterward. That evening, she reportedly stayed until around 10 p.m. Her boyfriend later told authorities that he walked with her part of the way, then turned back when she said she would be fine walking the rest of the short distance alone. This was something Deanna had done before. It was only a few blocks to her house. The neighborhood was familiar, the streets quiet, and there was no reason to expect danger. That was the last confirmed time anyone saw her alive. The next morning, Wednesday, March 29th, Deanna's body was discovered around 8 a.m. It was found behind a senior housing complex near the intersection of Jaques Street and Temple Street. She had not reached her home. Her remains were located just a few hundred feet away from where she lived. The person who discovered her was a young student walking to school. The area where her body was found was a commonly used pedestrian shortcut. Deanna had been the victim of a fatal crime. Her body showed evidence that her life had been ended by another person, and it was clear that the act had been deliberate. She had not been robbed. Her clothing remained intact. There were no signs of a struggle loud enough to alert neighbors. There was no indication of a crime of an intimate nature. Her body appeared to have been placed in that location sometime overnight, as it was in an area that would have been visible during the day. The initial shock that rippled through the community was profound. People struggled to understand how this could have happened. A young girl, just blocks from home with no known enemies, in a relatively quiet residential neighborhood. How could she end up dead, left out in the open like that? Police cordoned off the area and began collecting evidence. Forensic technology in 1995 was limited by today's standards, but authorities did recover DNA evidence. It was preserved for future analysis. A timeline was constructed based on interviews, phone records, and witness accounts. Investigators attempted to identify every person who may have seen Deanna that night or who may have had contact with her in the hours leading up to her death. While authorities worked the case, the community mourned. Somerville High School canceled classes the following day. Students organized memorials. Teachers offered counseling. The city itself was in disbelief. It was one thing to hear about violence on the news. It was another to see it unfold so close to home, involving a child known to so many. Local news outlets covered the story extensively. Police released statements but were careful not to speculate publicly. They reassured residents that they were pursuing all leads. They acknowledged that the crime appeared to have been committed by someone who knew the area, and possibly someone who knew Deanna herself. As the hours turned into days, and the days into weeks, no arrest was made. Despite early investigative efforts, the case remained without resolution. Deanna's funeral was attended by hundreds, including classmates, community members, and local officials. Her death left behind a trail of grief, confusion, and unanswered questions. From the outset, investigators considered multiple possibilities. The fact that Deanna's belongings were undisturbed and that there were no signs of a robbery or act of an intimate nature led many to believe the act was personal. It was unlikely to have been random. The scene did not suggest a chaotic struggle. Instead, it pointed to something calculated. Someone who knew how to act quickly and leave minimal traces. One of the first individuals to be interviewed was Deanna's boyfriend, as he was the last known person to see her alive. He told investigators that he walked her halfway home. According to his version of events, she insisted on walking the rest of the way by herself, complied. However, this story left a crucial gap. If Deanna was attacked after they parted ways, it would have had to occur within minutes, along a very short and familiar path. Deanna's mother, Joan Cremin, later stated publicly that she did not believe her daughter would have chosen to walk alone at night. She raised doubts about the boyfriend's account, suggesting Deanna may have felt uneasy that night. Joan has also spoken about her belief that the person responsible was someone close to her daughter, someone who had her trust. In the months following the incident, several individuals emerged as persons of interest. One was the boyfriend. Another was a local firefighter who had, according to some accounts, shown inappropriate attention toward Deanna. He was significantly older than she was. Some neighbors reported seeing him in the vicinity before. Others spoke of his history of concerning behavior. A third person of interest was a local man with a criminal record, known to authorities for unrelated offenses. He reportedly had no known connection to Deanna, but his name appeared in police records during the investigation. Despite repeated interviews and reviews of these individuals' backgrounds, no arrests were made, no charges were filed. Police did not publicly name any suspects. The case stalled. Speculation grew. In online forums, community meetings, and newspaper comment sections, theories abounded. Some believed the boyfriend was withholding information. Others suspected that Deanna may have attempted to report inappropriate behavior from someone older and that person retaliated. There were also theories about jealousy, about stalking, and about secrets she may have kept from even her closest friends. Investigators collected DNA from several people, but no match was confirmed. The sample found at the scene was not immediately helpful. Technology at the time couldn't identify low-level DNA contributors. Partial profiles were difficult to compare. Years later, new testing methods would revive interest in the case. But the delay had already caused frustration for Deanna's family. Forensic testing was not the only obstacle. Witness cooperation proved difficult. There was a general belief among the police that someone knew more than they were admitting. Whether out of fear, shame, or loyalty, key information was never disclosed. Detectives continued to work the case quietly, occasionally releasing appeals to the public, but with each year that passed, the weight of time made progress more difficult. The loss of Deanna Cremin was not simply the loss of a daughter, sister, or friend. It was the shattering of a family's entire world. From the morning her body was discovered, her mother, Joan Cremin, stepped into a lifelong mission to make sure Deanna would not be forgotten, and that whoever was responsible for ending her life would be held accountable. Joan Cremin's dedication became a defining part of the case. She has consistently spoken out in interviews, appeared on local television segments, and reached out to law enforcement agencies, media outlets, and community organizers. She has publicly criticized the pace of the investigation and questioned whether all possible avenues were pursued. She has not shied away from naming her suspicions, especially when it came to individuals who had been close to Deanna. For Joan, the loss of her daughter was not just about grief. It became about injustice. It became about survival. She described how Deanna's room remained untouched for years, a symbolic space frozen in time. Her daughter's belongings were kept as they had been, her makeup, her notebooks, her clothing, all pieces of a life abruptly halted. Joan often speaks about what Deanna never had the chance to experience. She never finished high school. She never applied to college. She never celebrated her 18th birthday. She never had the opportunity to find her passion, choose a career, fall in love as an adult, or live independently. These were all milestones that were taken from her, and in turn, from her family. Deanna's father, Joe Cremin, also carried the weight of that loss. He was described by those close to the family as quiet but deeply wounded. The pain of losing a child is a lifelong sentence of what-ifs and what-ifs. He continued to support efforts for justice, but mostly stayed out of the spotlight. Deanna's siblings were left to grow up under the shadow of tragedy. They were forced to carry memories of a sister they adored, coupled with the knowledge that her case remained unresolved. Childhood in the Cremin home changed overnight. The holidays became hollow. Birthdays became reminders of absence rather than celebration. Every passing year was another year without closure. In the community, the Cremin family became symbolic of resilience. Neighbors and friends rallied around them. Candlelight vigils were held annually. Purple ribbons were tied to lampposts. Community members contributed to the reward fund. People volunteered to distribute flyers and write letters to public officials. Joan spearheaded many of these efforts. She also became involved in awareness campaigns for other families of victims of unsolved crimes. She advocated for increased resources, cold case units, and the use of advanced forensic tools. Her experience was not isolated. There were other families in Massachusetts and across the country who had experienced the same pain. Together, they found support and purpose in activism. In 2015, on the 20th anniversary of Deanna's passing, the Cremin family and supporters held a large vigil. The event was covered by local news outlets and attended by Somerville residents, officials, students, and community leaders. Joan spoke to the crowd about her continued hope for justice and her gratitude for the city's unwavering support. Each year since then, the vigils have continued. And each time, the message has remained the same. Deanna mattered. Her story matters, and it is not over. The case of Deanna Cremin has never officially gone cold. Although leads have come and gone, and years have passed without an arrest, the case file remains active within the Middlesex District Attorney's Office. In the early 2000s, a shift occurred. DNA testing began to evolve rapidly. Investigators returned to the evidence collected in 1995 and submitted it for reanalysis. The sample that had once been inconclusive was now examined with new tools. While authorities did not disclose the details of the results, they confirmed that DNA was still present and viable. In 2005, police stated publicly that the forensic materials had been resubmitted for further testing. There was hope that advancements in genetic genealogy, eventually used in national cases like the Golden State Killer, could be applied to Deanna's case. In interviews, officials acknowledged that this method had potential, though no match had been identified at that time. In 2010, authorities again confirmed that the case was under review. They re-interviewed some individuals originally spoken to in 1995. The strategy was to look for inconsistencies, new details, or gaps that may have been overlooked. But these efforts, while necessary, did not produce a conclusive breakthrough. By 2015, a more formal effort was underway. The Middlesex DA's office confirmed that new detectives were reviewing the file, and that every piece of evidence had been re-evaluated using the most modern techniques available. That year also marked the announcement of a significant reward. $70,000 was offered for information leading to an arrest and conviction in the case. The reward remains active. The funding came from a combination of city support, private donations, and public fundraising efforts. It stands as a visible symbol of the community's ongoing demand for justice. In the years that followed, additional developments occurred behind the scenes. While the public saw few outward changes, law enforcement quietly continued forensic testing and cross-referencing DNA against national databases. Deanna's DNA evidence is believed to be stored in both CODAs and other systems that allow for familial matching. As of 2023, investigators confirmed that the case is still being actively pursued. Detectives from the Middlesex District Attorney's Office and the Somerville Police Department meet regularly to review the file. Advances in DNA extraction, bioinformatics, and ancestry tracing provide renewed hope that even minute traces can now be analyzed in ways that were impossible decades ago. In addition, tips continue to come in. The Friends of Deanna Cremin Facebook page regularly shares contact information for anonymous tip lines and urges the public to speak out. Even if their knowledge seems minor, authorities have reiterated that even a small detail, previously thought unimportant, could help break the case open. Despite nearly 3 decades of silence from the person responsible, there is still the possibility that time and science can bring the truth to light. Deanna Cremin's life, though cut short, has continued to leave a mark on the community of Somerville and beyond. Her memory has been preserved through her family's unwavering devotion, through public spaces named in her honor, and through the continued pursuit of truth by law enforcement and private citizens alike. One of the most visible tributes to her is Deanna Cremin Square. This location, near where her body was found, was renamed in her honor. A commemorative plaque stands at the site, a permanent reminder of her life and the tragedy that took place there. For passersby, the name serves as both a memorial and a question. It asks what happened. It asks why it remains unresolved. It asks who still knows something. Deanna's story is also carried forward each year through the Deanna Cremin Reward Scholarship, awarded to graduating seniors at Somerville High School. This scholarship is not just a financial award. It is a reflection of Deanna's character. The recipients are students who demonstrate kindness, community involvement, and a strong moral compass, much like Deanna herself. Each year, her name is spoken at graduation, her story retold, and her memory carried forward into the future by those who never had the chance to meet her. The Friends of Deanna Cremin Facebook page remains active, serves not only as a digital memorial, but as a public awareness hub. It features posts from family, friends, journalists, advocates, and concerned citizens. Birthdays, anniversaries, vigils, and newspaper clippings are shared regularly. Appeals for information are reposted, and memories are preserved. This page has become a living document of grief, hope, and resilience. It allows anyone, anywhere, to learn about Deanna and to join the growing number of people committed to keeping her name in the public consciousness. With thousands of followers, it has become a central platform for mobilizing community support and for keeping pressure on those with the power to pursue justice. Each March, the community continues to gather for a candlelight vigil in Deanna's memory. People light candles, wear purple, and speak her name aloud. It is a solemn event, one that has become part of the city's calendar. Local officials, school staff, former classmates, and even young people who were not yet born when Deanna passed attend each year to show that she has not been forgotten. The $70,000 reward remains available for anyone who provides information leading to an arrest and conviction. As of the most recent public update, this reward is still active. Tips can be submitted anonymously through the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office or the Somerville Police Department. Authorities have stated that all tips will be taken seriously, no matter how long ago the events occurred. The ongoing legacy of Deanna Cremin is one of enduring strength. It is a story of a young woman who deserved more life, more time, and more opportunities. It is also the story of a family who refused to be silent, of a city that chose not to forget, and of a justice system still trying to fulfill its promise. As of 2025, the case remains officially unresolved. Deanna Cremin's name still appears on active investigation lists within the Middlesex District Attorney's Office. Detectives continue to review forensic evidence. DNA from the crime scene has been preserved and periodically retested. Genealogy-based tracing remains a possibility, especially as national databases expand and technology advances. In a recent public statement, a spokesperson for the District Attorney's Office reiterated their commitment to resolving the case. They acknowledged that persons of interest have been identified over the years. They confirmed that new investigative techniques, particularly in DNA matching, being evaluated and applied where appropriate. They also stressed the importance of public cooperation, renewing their call for information from anyone who might have known something in 1995 and remained silent out of fear or uncertainty. Although decades have passed, cases like Deanna's are increasingly being solved thanks to a combination of forensic breakthroughs, digital information sharing, and persistent community advocacy. What once seemed impossible is now within reach in many jurisdictions. Investigators continue to believe that a resolution is possible. The family remains active in all developments. Joan Cremin continues to meet with detectives, advocates for progress, and updates the public through events and social media. Her strength has become emblematic of families who are forced to carry pain in the absence of answers. The path to closure is long. It is often slow, but it is not closed. For those watching, reading, or listening, there is always a chance that someone you know remembers something. There is always a possibility that a small piece of information could change the course of this case. If you know anything, no matter how minor it may seem, you can help. The numbers are public, the forms are anonymous, the door remains open. Deanna Cremin should have graduated. She should have gone on to live a full life. She should have experienced all the ordinary and extraordinary things that young people dream about. That future was taken from her. But what remains, her name, her story, her impact, is something no one can erase. In the end, it is not just about finding who ended her life. It is about restoring a piece of humanity that was taken. It is about honoring a life that mattered. It is about refusing to let silence win. If you have any information related to the 1995 case of Deanna Cremin, whether it's something you witnessed, heard about, or even suspected at the time, it may still matter. What seemed insignificant 30 years ago could be the detail that brings long overdue answers today. The individual responsible for ending Deanna's life has never been publicly identified, and authorities believe someone out there knows something. Even a single piece of overlooked information, no matter how minor it may appear, could change the direction of the investigation. Anyone with information is encouraged to reach out directly to the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office, which continues to lead the case in cooperation with local authorities. You can contact them by calling 781-897-8300. Additional information and resources are also available on their official website, www.middlesexda.com. Tips can also be directed to the Somerville Police Department, which has remained involved in the case from the beginning. The department can be reached at 617-625-1608. If you prefer not to give your name, that's okay. Anonymous tips are accepted, and confidentiality is respected. Your voice can still make a difference. A $70,000 reward remains available for any information that leads to an arrest and conviction. This reward is the result of years of effort by Deanna's family, local officials, and members of the community who refuse to give up. If you know something, if you've carried a piece of this story with you for years, now's the time to speak. A single phone call could finally bring justice to Deanna, and peace to those who have waited nearly 3 decades for answers. The opportunity to help is still here. The lines are still open, and the need for truth has never faded. Thank you for watching Fatal Secrets of True Crime. Subscribe for more stories like this. Real crimes, hidden truths, and the secrets they tried to bury. Your support helps keep these stories alive and the pressure on for answers. Until next time, remember, every secret eventually comes to light.